Hi there, it's Dr. Nadia, founder of the Doyenne Agency and host of Straight Talk About Sales. And we are in episode 5 of a 5-part series on having a launch. And wrapping it up, congratulations! You did your launch. How awesome is that? Your launch is done. You've made your offer. You've had your conversations. People are enrolling. And you may be thinking to yourself, what the heck happens next? Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. One of the first things you want to do is make sure everything's working with the enrollment piece. So people said yes. Do you have all your emails in place to welcome them on board, access to any programs? So if there's any type of program access that maybe they automatically get access to, any special dates they need to put on their calendar, especially for your longer types of programs or your masterminds, in-person events so that they can start to prepare, especially if you're going to have them travel. Very important to get that information out. Welcome gifts. Are you sending them anything in the mail? What does that entire process look like? Is that you or is that someone on your team? So you want to make sure you have all that information together. Make sure they're getting access to their Facebook groups and all the cool things that happen when you have a launch. Yay! So congratulations. That is so awesome. The next thing you want to do is analyze the data. So part 2 or step 2 is analyze the data. What type of feedback did you get? What was your conversion rate like? What were some of the things or reasons why people said no or not now? What does that look like? So you want to take a look at that. If you had a lower price program and you didn't necessarily have conversations, then you want to look at how many people said yes who attended the live webinar versus those that didn't. So you want to take a minute to just go back and look at your analytics or have someone on your team look at those analytics, because there's a lot of information, again, that can be provided when you review that data. So for example, I have a client, she did a launch a year or so ago. Can't remember the exact date. I just know it was like in the fall. Anyway, that's irrelevant to this story. And in this launch, she did part live, part pre-recorded. And we noticed that the result to that wasn't as powerful. So after watching a couple of launches and just now having some data, we realized that live, when she's live, whether it's in person or online for a launch, is so much more powerful. So we know what not to do again, right? So you want to look at that data, look at those different data points. If you had a live webinar, maybe multiple days, so people had options or different times, which time of day, I should say, worked best. So that's all great information for you should you decide to do this launch again. So, and depending on how often you open the doors, if you will, to your program, you may be looking to do this again next quarter. So this is really, really valuable information to use, looking at the response rates and the open rates to your email sequence. All of that matters, because here's the thing, between now and the next time you launch, should you do it again, you're going to get new people. So you can leverage a lot of the content you've already created. You don't have to go reinvent the wheel. All right. You can leverage that same content, because you'll have new people and you'll have people that are like, oh crap, I better jump in on this. That'll take advantage of this the next time you decide to open the doors. Or if you have open enrollment, then you can continue to just leverage that data to continue those conversations. Some of this stuff you would have already done prior to getting to this point, but based on the data, you might decide to make some adjustments. So for example, I have a client, just had a launch earlier this year. Phenomenal. She was actually offering 2 different levels to her program, and we noticed that one is doing better than the other. So as a team, we're looking at that data and we're analyzing it so that we can make adjustments the next time that she decides to launch. So that's why this data is so important. It is very rich. The good news is we've had a lot of conversations, so we have some direct feedback from people who went through the process that may or may not have said yes. So we can talk to both yes and no's to get some really good feedback so that we can tighten it up and have an even better launch the next time around. Point number 3 is, really thinking about those that said no or did not take action. What is the strategy for them? And sometimes we prepare for that mentally and we just let it go. So I want you to just take some time to think about what happens now that we're launched, you're working with clients, everything is exciting, but what about those that said no? Is there a downsell? Is there a better program that might be a better fit for them? Is there an upsell? Like, sometimes talk about down, but sometimes people are like, that's not enough. I want more. So for example, one of my clients, she's now doing a lot more leverage type work, which many of you look to. That's why launches are great, because you get a whole group of people in your program at once, especially if you have a group program or an online program, right? Leverage your time. Great. Well, here's the thing. There are people that still want more of her. So there's an option, but that's an upsell, right? You can do the program as she has it outlined and be part of the group. Or if you want to work with her privately, yes, that's an option. It's just going to cost more. That may be an option for some of your people, but you have to take the time to really think about it. And again, that may go back to point number 2 when you're looking at your data. What's the best fit? Do you have the bandwidth for that too? Because once you get a big influx of new clients, that impacts your time and your availability. So you definitely want to look at that as well. Does it make sense? And maybe it does, but maybe you're talking about working maybe with 3 or 4 clients one-on-one or privately with you, but they pay a higher investment, like, I don't know, $25,000, 20, 25, 30. I don't know. You come up with that number based on your business, but you see the difference in terms of price and access. So you definitely want to pay attention to that, or else you run the risk of burning yourself out because you now overcommitted, and that's never fun. You want to make sure that you think about and implement a nurture sequence. So you want to continue the conversation, because no now doesn't mean no forever. People have different reasons as to why they don't pull the trigger. And again, a very small percentage of your market is buying now. So you want to take a look at that. How are you continuing that conversation to continue to nurture that group so that they're ready, if it's the right fit, the next time you open the doors or the next time you launch? So you want to think about that, look at that. Again, great information can be gleaned from the data from your previous or your current launch, the one you just wrapped up, right? So you can take that information and then be able to, what questions do they have? Maybe there were questions that weren't answered. You thought one thing and they're thinking another. So you really want to take some time to think through that, and then leverage your systems and your strategy to put together a nice automation or some type of sequence, or whatever type of sequence you want to put together. Maybe there's some other pieces to that, but you want to think about what makes the most sense as you're continuing to build that relationship with them to move them to that buying decision. All right. Point number 4 is celebrate your hard work. This is one that's often overlooked. Launches are a lot of work. They are hard work. So you want to make sure to take a moment to celebrate, even if things did not go the way you wanted them to go. Because here's the thing, you took the time, you put in the effort and the energy and the resources to make it happen and to put yourself out there, which is not easy and is very scary sometimes. So take time to celebrate and acknowledge a job well done. And then get back in the lab, review all this data, get all the feedback from those that said yes, looking at things about why people may not have moved forward. What tweaks do you need to make to your entire launch strategy, right? All the way down to your sales conversations, so that then you can make those adjustments moving forward. Finally, as I wrap up, I wanted to make sure I answer all the questions that have come my way during this launch series. And one of those questions was, how often can I launch without wearing out my list or my community? The truth of the matter is, it depends. I know y'all like, Dr. Nadia, really? It really does depend. One, it depends on what you're launching. So you may decide to have multiple launches, but you may launch different things at different points. But a bigger point is it also depends on your business model and your community. So some people's communities, depending on who you're launching to, they don't mind. It's not like they're going to get all offended and get all bent out of shape about it or worn out. And then there are others, it's like, wait a minute. Now, typically, and I use this pretty broad, a lot of times I've seen clients that leverage 4 launches a year. But again, this is depending upon your business model and your program. So right now I have a client, she does about 4 launches a year. They all look different, so they're not done in the same way. But she has a program, she opens the doors, it's like once a quarter. So there's always some type of push right before to get people enrolled in that next group. I have another client, she only does it once a year. She has a year-long program. It's very, very intense. During those 12 months, there are a lot of things that she's doing with her clients over the course of that year, so she only does it once. And that allows her to really focus on those that said yes and give her time and commitment to them so that she can focus on them. And then, of course, you got people that don't do launches at all, so they may do them a little more frequently or maybe twice a year. So it really, again, depends on you, depends on your business model, depends on, what it is that you're launching. Bigger, depends on your community. What does your community look like? How have you trained them, if you will, or what types of expectations do they have based on your previous behaviors? How often do they hear from you? Is that normal? Is that abnormal? So those are all things that you'll have to take into consideration when you decide how often you want to launch. The bigger thing is, what are your revenue goals and what does that look like? Because again, that reverse math that you can do, like, okay, and it may not be launches, but you're like, if I'm going to hit this number selling this thing, I need to sell X of those, right? Basic math. And then you can then decide what strategy makes the most sense to help you hit that goal. All right. So again, just really quick, how many times? Totally depends. I know. I'm sorry. I love you. I know who asked that question. They're probably like, really, Dr. Nadia? But it really does depend. So remember, get ready for the influx because there are a lot of things that are going to be happening. Congratulations, you got a launch, you got a whole bunch of new clients, right? So be ready for the yes. Make sure to make time to have your team pull the data so that you can review it, or you guys review it as a team because you definitely want to look at the analytics from your launch. Make sure there's a strategy in place to continue the conversation for those that said no. And don't forget to celebrate your hard work. So that is the end of this 5-part series on launches. They are, like I said, they can be very rewarding, but they can also be a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of resources to make it happen and to happen big. And don't forget, a launch model may not be best for your business. So I know I did this 5-part series, but I started this puppy off by saying it may not be best for your business. So you definitely want to take a look at that as well. Okay. And then finally, I just want to give a huge shout out to Jillian and Katie over at Hire Katie for even planting the seed. Katie wrote a blog post that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I just ran with it. And I adore Jillian. I get to work with her on a consistent basis supporting clients, and they are brilliant at what they do. And finally, a big shout out to Ada, who is the genius behind the scenes that most people don't get to see, but we know you're out there. So again, just thank you to my colleagues for planting that seed, for allowing me the opportunity to share this. And again, if you need support with launches, especially on that front end, getting things in place, looking at your systems and all the moving pieces, go to hirekatie.com, schedule some time to chat with Jillian, see if that's a good fit, a good next step for you, so that you can, make an informed decision about whether or not a launch is right. And if it is right, is it right now? All right. This is Dr. Nadia with another episode of Straight Talk About Sales. Thank you so much for joining. Signing off right now. See you again soon. Bye-bye.